Shalom and welcome to Beyond the Mountain, looking into the spiritual realities of this world and embracing healing for the broken heart of Ephraim. Okay, here we are for another podcast for Beyond the Mountain, and with me is a special guest, Greg Raley. I've known Greg for quite some time now. It's interesting how my wife and I ended up meeting Greg. He was in a situation where it was a pretty bad situation, and the father just said, "Hey, reach out and help this brother out," and it was in Israel, right at the Abraham Hostel. Remember?
Yeah. That was quite timely that the Lord sent you, because I only had enough money for the day I just spent at the hostel, and I needed enough money for one more day before I left. And the Lord spoke to you, and I didn't say anything to you. You went last night.
Yeah, that's amazing. So this is Greg Raley. He's hails from Houston, Texas, not too far from Shlomo, who's over there in Corpus Christi. Shlomo couldn't join us. He's got a lot of stuff on his plate right now, but he will be editing this video for those who see the final product. At Beyond the Mountain, we posted on the website 2 years ago. So from what Greg had pointed out to me, this was 2 years ago, from the Torah portion that we just had, the last Torah portion before Pinchas, or Phineas, which is Balak. And so that was the Torah portion. And so I'm going to share the screen with the website so you can all see it. So right here is sharing the screen. Is you're going to go to Beyond the Mountain. If you went under right here where it says Visions and Dreams, if you click on that, because those who want to review this particular dream, this was given exactly 2 years ago. So we're into the third year, and we're going to be talking about that, how these bears could represent years. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and read the whole dream here so the listeners have context. So here we go. This was back June 28th, 2020. This past Friday night, while sleeping, I had a dream about 3 black bears. At first, I passed the dream off as nonsensical. But on Shabbat day, Abba said his dream was significant and has meaning as to what we are going through in the current time we are in. He gave me the interpretation, one kind of interpretation. You'll see that I think this has layers, and Greg is going to be sharing a layer to this as well. First, I will share with you the content of the dream. A series of 3 black bears passed through our yard. Each successive bear was bigger than the next. The first bear appeared, and I went out into the yard and came at the bear from behind and gave him a hug. He was not aggressive, and he knew I meant him no harm. I was able to coax him into a cage and brought him to a safe location. The next bear was even bigger, yet I did the same thing. I approached him from behind and hugged him. He responded like the first bear, and he knew I meant him no harm. Like the first bear, I coaxed him into a cage to bring him to a safe location. The third and final bear was 500 pounds. Yet I approached him the same way. I came from behind and hugged him. He in turn behaved like the other bears, only this time I said to him that he could come and he could visit at any time, and if he wanted me to pet him, that he should come on our back deck and I would pet him. The bear then went his way and came back to visit on the back deck several days later in the morning. My wife, Raina, and I saw him from the kitchen on the deck. I said to Raina, "Look, he wants me to come out and pet him." Raina asked, "Are you sure that's the same bear?" I said, "Absolutely." Then I went outside and began to pet him. I waved to Raina, who was still at the kitchen window, to come outside. She pointed at herself and questioned, "Me?" I said, "Yeah, yes, you." She reluctantly came out. I said to her, "The bear wants you to rub his ears." Raina then began to rub his ears, and he responded with delight. Then he communicated to us, and this was all telepathically, that he wanted a bath and asked if we could wet him down with a hose and give him a shampoo. He bathed in the sun as he dried, and when he was fully dried, he left and went back into the forest. That is when the dream ended. So this is my one layer of my interpretation. I said the bears represent three incidents that will happen that will rock our world. Each incident will be worse than the preceding one. We are to approach each incident the same as the first. Embrace each one the same way each time. The last will be worse than the first two. The Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov sees all and is aware of everything we are going through. By consistently embracing each situation in the same manner, Messiah will reverse the curse and joy will come in the morning. I pray this will be a blessing for you. We must all realize that nothing is hidden from our Messiah's eyes. He sees all, and we can trust him as we embrace each of these incidents that will come our way. Let us cast the spirits of fear, anxiety, and stress far from us. So just so you know, so Greg is going to give his understanding of this dream. And if you're wondering, has Greg ever had a situation where he interpreted a dream and it came out as it was? Yes, he just shared with me recently about a dream that he had in regard to him getting married to his wife. And why don't you just share with our listeners about that particular dream?
Okay. Yeah. I was a teenager. I believe I was 19 years old, on my way to Bible college. I'd already had one semester of Bible college, and I was returning after I had gone to a summer course at the Bible college, which was in Dallas, and I was returning for the fall with my parents. We had stopped south of Dallas because it was late and stayed in a hotel. And that night, I dreamed that I had went up to a dresser drawer, a set of dresser drawers, and I opened the drawer and I looked down and there was clothes there. So I pulled back one piece of clothing. I pulled back a second piece of clothing. I pulled back the third piece of clothing, and a light lit up in my face, and it was a big giant wedding ring. A bright light came from the diamond in the wedding ring. And the next morning, I knew that had to be a dream for the Lord because it was so brilliant. And so in my prayer, the Lord gave me the interpretation of the dream. The clothes were months. It was a threefold dream. The clothes were, each piece of clothing was 1 month. And the Lord said, after 3 months, you will meet the woman that you're supposed to marry. Well, I had went my way and started Bible college, and that fall semester, had forgotten about the dream, to be honest with you. And I met a girl who is now my wife for 42 years.
Oh,
I met at work, and we carpooled. There was four of her and three other girls from her dormitory, and I were working in the same place, and so we carpooled. And we went along after a period of time and started dating and stuff. And then after a couple months of dating, I knew I loved this woman who's now my wife. I knew I loved her. And then I remembered the dream. And I went back and calculated, and it was exactly 3 months. And so from that dream, I knew that I didn't tell her at that time about the dream, but I knew that she was supposed to be my wife. So that played out over several more months, but the dream was amazing.
Wow.
happened to be the night before I started Bible college, and the Lord said, "You're going to meet your wife at this Bible college." So
Okay. So there's an example.
that's the only other dream I'll ever give an interpretation to, other than the one that you're talking about.
Okay. So let's hear what you were getting from this particular dream.
Well, if you will, you'll look under down there is my post that I made. I had before you show it, I had read what you said about the three bears.
Yes.
That is amazing. That's interesting. So interesting. And I left my computer desk, and I forgot what I was doing at the time, but the Lord spoke to me and says, "There's more to that dream than the interpretation that He gave. There's more interpretation to it."
Right.
The Lord says it represents 3 years.
Mm.
And so, why don't you put up on the screen? You'll see my response. It's right.
Okay. So do y'all see that now? So now we have Greg responded on June 30th, 2020 when you read this. So why don't you go ahead and read that? Can you see it? Okay.
Yes. It says, "Glory to our Father in heaven who speaks to us in dreams and visions. The three bears are 3 Hebrew years. 5781, 5782, 5783. Each year's struggle is bigger and stronger. Each year's preparation for the great Exodus becomes busier yet joyful. The third year, there is the busiest by far in preparation for the logistics of the greater Exodus."
Now, I think what's interesting when you gave those Hebrew dates and you said that it corresponded to the Torah portion dealing with Balak, okay? And so we are now then, since we just now finished the Torah portion of Phineas or Pinchas, we are now a week into this third year. And here's the reason why I'm looking at when the year started. Not the start of the actual Hebrew year, in almost the midpoint of that year. Sort of like. So we're now starting into that third year right now. And so both of us are not into date setting or anything like that. Mm-hmm. We're just saying that the Father could be saying, keep your antennas up, because there could be something to this. And so that's what we're trying to do with everybody out there, and saying, pay attention to this. And so I was marinating on this whole aspect that you were mentioning too. 36, 24, and 25. "For I will take you from the nations, gather you out of all the countries, and bring you back to your own land. Then I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean from all your uncleanness and from all your idols." Mm-hmm. So if people could just take a look at that, if you could look at that, Ezekiel 36, I'm going to stop. Here's what I thought about that when you had mentioned about the whole idea of the bear, that bear being Israel. Okay, I started thinking about each of those bears representing, the first two anyway, dispersions. Mm-hmm. Okay, the first bear was the first dispersion that took place, which was Ezekiel, which was 722 BCE, when Ephraim was taken over by Assyria and scattered to the nations. But what happened is that they were brought to another location, and it was a safe place. If they would have remained in the place where they were being judged, they would have all perished. But he brought them to a safe location. And we can actually see this in the story of Naaman. Naaman, who was an Assyrian he was the chief general to the king. He comes and gets healed by Elisha after he humbles himself and goes 7 times in the river. And what does he say? he's going to go back and he's going to worship the God of Israel from that time forward. That's what he was going to do. And so he brought this influence to Assyria about worshiping Jehovah, the God of Israel. And what happened is that then those people, when they were brought up into Assyria, there were some that were there that were not, this worship of Jehovah, the God of Israel, was not something foreign to them. And it was a protective thing to where the nation, where the people of Ephraim could grow and expand by bringing them out. Now we see the next dispersion, that's going to Babylon, which was Brother Judah. And that ended as well, but they were brought to a safe place, because it said that Jehovah said, Nebuchadnezzar is my servant. Do not remain here, because you'll die. Go with him. Go with him to Babylon. So now it's interesting. The next bear, the big one, he was not taken to another location. He was in his own land already. Okay, which goes right according to Ezekiel 36, where it says they were in their own land. When they're in their land, he sprinkles clean water on them and makes them clean once he's brought them back. So my whole perspective on that, if you think we all need to be so spick, spot, and clean before we go, I mean, we have a lot of things that he needs to deal with us on, and it will all be dealt with once we get there.
Definitely have baggage, don't we?
Yes, we've got a lot of baggage. So that's what that got me thinking on that one. And if you could actually comment on that, how that ties into some of the things that you were talking about.
Well, I go back to the date that you had that dream.
Yeah.
It was before the 21 days of sadness, which we're in now.
Yeah.
The 17th of Tammuz to the 9th of Av. It was right before that had started. And I don't know if this answers your question, but that's when I thought that your dream would start, the 3 years. 3 years to the third period of 21 days of sadness. And you also said in your dream that there were 3 events that were going to happen.
Right. Yes.
When you had that dream, we had just started COVID. And in fact, COVID, there wasn't anybody that had died from COVID until about, I want to say it was April.
Yeah.
April of 2020, which was right before you had your. I don't know if that really answers what you're asking, but how does that play with what you're saying?
No, I was just thinking about how you were mentioning how the bears represent years, and then you were mentioning I saw an exchange. I put my phone's downstairs, but and anyway, what happened is on the phone you were mentioning something that you brought up, Ezekiel 36.
Yeah,
and then that got me thinking about, okay, the bear is, you're saying that the bear is Israel. Okay, interesting. So then that got me thinking about these other bears as also representing the dispersions.
Okay, I get
Yeah. And so I never thought of that layer to it as well, that they could represent the dispersions, and then the final one would be being in our own land, and the bear, that big bear, was in his own land, because we were more in his territory than anything. So he just went back to the forest, which was just beyond our deck.
Well, you know, I guess the biggest thing that really hit me about your dream, I mean, besides the 3 year period, was the three events, like I just mentioned a while ago.
Yes.
I don't know how that's going to play out. I mean,
No, we don't.
we don't know,
We
but
don't know.
whatever happens, it's going to cause the shaking loose of Ephraim
Yes.
in exile to come back to the land.
Yes.
And, I know there's a lot of people out there that are experts in end times theology, eschatology, and everybody has their own prerequisites to what happens. So I'm not wanting to get into any argument like that with anybody other than the dream that God gave you hit me hard, and it was a very strong move in my spirit about those being 3 years.
Yeah.
Not years as in, like you said, from the start of the new Hebrew year, but from the time that you had the dream.
Yes.
I believe I want to say it was the 8th or 9th. I sent it to you, 8th of Tammuz.
9th, 8th or 9th of Tammuz, yeah. I think it was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten all about your dream, and I started thinking about it, and then I realized I'm thinking about it right when it's been 2 years. I've been thinking that dream for a long way, but I've forgotten when it happened. And
Yes.
that's why I contacted you, and I asked you about it, and I asked you if you could tell me when you had the dream. And then why don't you say what the Lord gave you? A dream. That night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's interesting. Okay. So I hadn't, it just slipped my mind that you had actually you were talking about, you were seeing this vision as far as the bears. And I completely forgot about this dream. And you had brought up, have you thought about this? Hey, what about this dream? When did you have it? And all this type of thing. And you didn't mention the great Exodus at that point in time. And I was not even thinking in those regards at all, because I didn't know that you had related it to that. I completely forgot. And so what happened in my dream that very night, after we were texting each other back and forth and talking about this, I had a dream about actually going to the Shomron, and there was some sort of like, okay, there was like a sign it was supposed to be some electronic sign that's supposed to say about when you can go in. It gives you clearance to go in and all that type of thing, and you had to approach the government before you could go in. And it was some, even though it's not really exactly like that right now, but I went and got my clearance, and then I noticed that the sign was supposed to have changed, and it didn't change. I said, "What's going on?" I said, "There's somebody on the other side that's going to either eliminate me or thwart what my purpose is going to be." And my purpose was going to be scouting. I was going to be scouting the Shomron. Okay. Then what I did is I was very angry, and if people know me, I'm a very even keeled, kind of laid back kind of guy. And they were like, some people were just like totally like, whoa, they didn't see this from me at all. I was just like almost like the raging bull or something. And then I said, okay, I know what they're trying to do. This is an inside job. There are people, there are individuals that are working with the enemy. And I am going to expose them. And the next time I come back, I'm not coming back the same way. I'll come in by stealth. Is what I will do. I will come in by stealth, and by doing so, I will be able to expose them. Apparently, that was the dream, like that, and it just kind of ended like that. And so here's the thing: is that we're all into this type of thing. As like, we don't know when this is all going to happen. Because we not, and the reason why the Father's going to keep it secret to the enemy, so he'll never know.
Yeah.
Okay, because otherwise, if the enemy knows, he's going to be on the other side, ready to thwart it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now, what happens is that we're going to go in at when he whistles for us. That'll be the time we'll know what that all means when it happens, and then when we come in, it will be a stealth type operation when we come in, and the enemy will have no clue, and we'll finally be in our own land, and we'll have accomplished the purpose what the Father's setting out to do, and then the enemy is going to like, okay, well, I guess he wins again, huh? So anyway, that was what the dream was all about. So it was all about returning to the land. It was all about something to do with the Exodus. And then I look back, and then I'm looking at wait a minute. The next morning I'm looking at, he was relating the dream to the Exodus, and I just had a dream about that this morning.
Yeah.
2 hours of the morning. This is wow. That is wow. This is interesting.
That's why, I feel like it was our talk about this, my contacting you, the urge to want to contact you about the dream, Lord giving you that dream, that tells me that we're hearing from the Lord about these things for a reason. Now, ever since you had that, I read your dream 3 years ago, and I had that invitation. I have focused it has caused me to focus on redeeming the time, getting busy, and busy about the work. Hasn't been perfect, but I have an energy to go after the things of the Lord before the greater exodus, to prepare. So, and I think a lot of people in ministry, a lot of men of God, men and women of God, they get a little bit to the point where they're tired of hearing about prophetic stuff, and they poke fun at it and stuff like that. That's not what we should be doing. We should be serious about these things, not at setting dates, but at being motivated and be prepared for what's coming, because it's coming.
Yes,
and it's good.
It is coming.
It's coming soon.
And if we look at everything that's happening in this world today, I mean, my goodness, if it's not coming soon, I mean, the chaos that's in this world, it can't get much worse than that. And I heard Ephraim quote Eddie Chumney on this. Ephraim Frank said, "Well, Eddie always brings out that." Yeah, it may be a mess, but it'll only be 3.5 years. Only a 3.5 years mess. So now, whether we're in it now, in the mess now, we don't know where we are in the mess. And how is he going to enact this return to the land for us, and how is he going to do it? But he is giving us an alert. An alert to pay attention. Don't get caught up in this. I see people get to the point where they almost lose hope, and they forget about the words of the prophets. Nothing's going to stop what the prophets have said. Nothing will.
Right.
It will come to pass. It will happen.
If you think about World War II and Judah, the Jews.
Yes.
Their world was turned upside down.
Yes.
And through all that mess and the loss of some 6 million Jews, Jews went back to the land through all the chaos.
Yes.
all the murders and everything that took place. Um, I kind of feel like that sort of chaos is going to come again, causing the greater exodus to have caused the people to
Right.
leave their lands and leave their homes and stuff to go. Those who have the understanding that they have to go to the land.
Yes.
So I'm just kind of speculating. I don't know.
Yeah.
Things have a way of repeating themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know exactly as far as how this is all going to. Well, let's put it this way. We don't know what platform this is going to be on YouTube or Rumble. We do have a Rumble account too. But there's stuff happening right now. We did say this particular dream came about before just COVID started just really happening.
Yeah.
Now we have other reports that we're hearing about other things happening to people based upon something that's related to that whole thing. And that could be the second bear, the second thing that's going to rock our world. And maybe what's going to happen is the information will be uncovered and it will be shown to the, how big of an extent of a Holocaust is occurring even right now. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. So if you see what the father did with our older brother in the middle of such peril, he brought him home.
Yeah.
Worked, it's an incredible miracle. And you can get into, you hear all of these, they call them Zionist, it's a Zionist conspiracy, and it's a shame that people get caught up in that and let the enemy do that to them, and they miss out what he's doing prophetically.
Right.
I mean, they were our older brother Judah was at all odds. I mean, to actually get established in 1948, May 14th, 1948, and then later on, we see all the different other wars, and finally the taking of Jerusalem in 1967. I mean, they were surrounded by their enemies, totally surrounded. Who can win a battle in 6 days? A 6-day war. Come on. That is just totally, if you can't call that a miracle.
Yeah.
This is not modern day warfare. You're telling me that it was not the intervention of Jehovah to win a war in 6 days, modern way warfare.
Yeah.
And the fact that Israel didn't necessarily have this huge fleet of airplanes either to pull it off. So, and then if you hear the reports, every single detail had to be exact and perfect. The conditions, everything, in order for that to come out successful the way it did when they initially attacked, when they did that first airplane attack on the airfields there. And so when you hear about that happening, I mean, how can you not say that these are miracles? When you hear about the miracles, the late David Yaniv shares about a miracle about walking through this area. It was filled with mines, and they were saying, and it was dark out, but they had to get through. And they were saying, how are we going to do this? Because and make it out alive. Well, what happened is that Yehovah brought a mighty wind and blew the sand that was there and exposed every single mine. and they're able to walk through onto the other side and get through. And you know, I mean, you hear these stories that it's just like that. Yehovah is behind it all.
Yeah.
And those are for us to grab a hold of, because when we are in this time of a dire strait where we're thinking that, oh wow, this is, our backs are against the wall, there's no hope for us. Well, look what happened to our brother Judah. Look to what happened to them and how the Father intervened, and He has to intervene for us because the prophets have foretold it, and all these events that are going on, he's not at all. This is not coming as a surprise to him. I mean, he's saying all these are supposed to happen to line up for that one big event where I'm going to bring you home, and I'm going to sprinkle that clean water on you, and you shall be clean.
Amen. You know, you see it lining up in the nations.
Yes.
Russia and China and Iran and Turkey kind of uniting, and then United States, Israel, and the southern Islamic nations.
Yes.
It appears that there's an alignment taking place.
Yeah, definitely.
Here's what I do. I am working as if the dream is absolutely true.
Okay.
And I pretty much believe it is, but it's not my only motivating factor. But I want to, I would, my message to anybody that's listening to this is get busy. Not busy trying to figure out a date, but get busy preparing for what's coming. And whatever how the Lord shows you to do, whatever He shows you to do to get ready, do it. Prepare, because it's and the rabbis. Some of the rabbis were telling the Jews back in the 30s that they needed to prepare for what's coming, and some listened, most didn't.
Yes, true.
And many of the Jews left from what the rabbis were saying and telling them.
Right.
Know anything about the story? I don't know those, but
yeah, some of the warnings, for instance, if you're looking at what happened, during that what brought them back into the land and come to the point where the May 14th, 1948, their nation again, there were initial warnings before the Nazis took over and everything like that. They're saying, this is what they're planning. You need to get out right now. And some they heard the warnings and they didn't leave. So, but with us, it's going to be, He's going to do it, and we're not going to be in the dark when it happens. We just need to say to ourselves, not get so much into that place where, well, I don't think this is really going to happen. And you get so overwhelmed with all the news. If you focus on the news to that degree, you're going to get so overwhelmed with that stuff, and you're going to forget what the prophets have been saying. And instead of looking at the news in the right way, as a landmark and a highway marker of where we're at, that's what you need to look at. Look at the news as a landmark and a highway marker from where we're at and what that is telling us right now, what we're supposed to do and what we're supposed to be about.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Amen. So we have a lot of so folks out there. My brother Greg. I mean, I've known him. And that if he feels that the Father is speaking to him about something, I mean, he's going to come right out and say it, and he's going to and he just said it with a lot of authority there of what he believes. And when he mentioned to me about this other layer to the dream, this other interpretive layer to the dream, I'm now kind of like, wow, okay, how did I miss that? How did I allow that? How did I allow the 2 years time to actually cause me to forget what you said? And maybe that dream that I had, the second one now, more recent one, was to say, hey, I'm going to just, he was just shaking me up out of my slumber.
Yeah.
And I would say what our brother is trying to do is shake you up. If you know you're Israel and you know that this is not your home, wherever you are in the diaspora. I'm not talking about just the United States. Wherever you are, because if you're listening to uh, this podcast, and you're wherever you are in the four corners of the world, and you're listening to this, where you are is not your home. You are in the exile, and he has a plan and a purpose to bring you home, and he will do it. You don't have to go through some manipulative plan where you have to come up with some bright idea how it's going to be done. He's going to do it. He's going to lay it out, but keep your eyes and ears open to what he is doing. And when things happen, don't be in the place of doubt. No, this can't be happening now. No, 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 no. In fact, I had a dream also several years ago where when we returning to the land. It was the greater exodus that was happening. But when we left, there's a bunch of us that had left in a plane and actually landed in a Beirut airport. Now you can wonder, how is that going to happen? Well, what happened at the time is Israel, according to Zechariah 14, you can read that. I think it's 14, where looks like a nuclear missile or something hits Damascus. Damascus had been completely destroyed by that time. Israel, in my dream, Israel had air supremacy over Lebanon and all of Syria and Jordan and everything like that. Yet they had air supremacy, and the whole world was looking at as Israel as the number one superpower by that time. Interesting.
Yeah.
And so what happened is that we ended up getting into a place where we saw that everything was in that direction to come home, but there was nuclear fallout, and so we were going to a place where there's nuclear fallout. And so when Israel, who's controlling the airspaces, says, "Wow, doesn't bother us if that's where you go. We can see that your mission is humanitarian, but you're not going to live very long."
Yeah.
And so we went, and what happened is that, and I look at some of the Gospels. I think it's the latter part of Matthew where it's talking about that you're going to be drinking poisoned waters, and they're not going to harm you. All these different things are going to happen, and it's not going to affect you. And so this is what was happening while we got to Lebanon. We landed at the Beirut airport. There was guys on that plane that knew about mechanical things, and they were able to revive some of these different like tractors or earth moving type vehicles. And they says, "Okay, we're going to start rebuilding." And they were starting to rebuild Lebanon. It was happening in this dream of mine. So I've had different dreams that he's said to me, where he's had actually 3 confirmations. When I doubted him, he had 3 confirmations to show me that this is real. I mean, to the point of what's going to happen, how the Father's going to bring it about, and it's so fantastic. You kind of like wonder what, and you can say, but he was so detailed with everything in the dream. And I don't think it's for disclosure in this particular format right now. That's why I'm not sharing all the details of it.
Right.
But what I can say is that he has been sharing with me through the years specific details of things, and it has actually confirmed them through various different people, and so it'll be exciting to see how he works all those details out. That's for sure.
Well, you've shared that dream with me before.
Yes.
Very practical dream, practical in the sense that going about rebuilding after a mess that happens.
Yes.
After a catastrophic event that happens. And very practical. It's even talked about in Ezekiel where there's 7 months of burying the dead in the mountains of Israel, the total destruction of Damascus. I'm not sure where that particular prophecy is. It's probably not in Ezekiel. But
somewhere in Zechariah it talks about that. I can't remember. It was 14 or it's in Zechariah though. Yeah.
It talks about the total annihilation of Damascus.
Yes.
And there's other things that probably connect. I mean, I know there's other prophecies that they're kind of all connected to one particular event that's going to happen in the future. But it's an exciting future.
Yes.
You know, the bear is good for you, but not so much for the rest of the world that doesn't follow Yehovah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We'll our ears will be tickled, and we'll get a nice shampoo. Yeah. And we'll just return to working in our own land and doing what we're supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Hallelujah. So I don't know. How do you want to end this thing? I mean, it's just it's been quite a good discussion here, and I pray people are very encouraged by it.
Yeah, I think I've pretty much said it all. That that in my heart that you asked me to share.
Yes.
So I guess this won't be going out to the audience that gets this, right? This will be edited.
Well, some of this I'll let Shlomo decide what he's going to add it.
Yeah.
But he can do that. But let me just he'll put this in there. I'll say, well, let's just end this with some prayer right now. So, Father, we just ask that you would actually quicken our ears, quicken us to what's going to happen in the coming days, knowing that you have said in your word and your prophets that you're going to return us home to our own land, and that we will be on our own soil, and it will be you that will do it, and it will be so obvious that it'll be you, just as when we talk about Brother Judah and the things that happened, it becomes absolutely obvious that you did it. It was not man at all. Man maybe had their own machines or their own planes, etc. But in order for it to actually work out the way it did, you had to be in it all, and you had to actually take care of the whole thing. And so, Father, I just pray that it will encourage everyone out there to start thinking about what they need to be about before the coming Exodus. What do you need to be about? What do you need to put your hands to? And leave this is all up in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen.
Join us next time as we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and the powers and the principalities of the air, going beyond the mountain.